everyone. So today we are cracking open the playbook that the pros and their coaches live by. We're going to pull back the curtain on how fitness is actually measured, getting way beyond just guesswork and diving straight into the science of performance. All right, let's get into it. So think about it. You hit the gym, you go for a run, you feel pretty good, you feel strong, you feel fast. But are you? Feelings can be, well, a little misleading. How do you actually put a number on your fitness? How do you know for sure that you're getting better? That's the exact question we're going to answer. Okay, first things first. Before we can measure anything, we have to agree on what we're looking for. And rule number 1 in the playbook is this: physical fitness isn't just one thing. Nope. It's actually a whole collection of different skills and abilities all working together. Let's start with the absolute foundation: muscular strength. Now, the key word here is maximum. We're not talking about how many reps you can do or for how long. We're talking about the absolute most force you can possibly generate in one single all-out effort. It's your peak power in a single moment. But of course, it's never quite that simple, is it? See, that peak force can show up in a couple of very different ways. You can measure strength while you're moving, or you can measure it while you're holding perfectly still. And that distinction, well, it's a total game changer for how you test an athlete. So let's dive into this science here. We're going to break down strength into its 2 main types: isotonic and isometric. These might sound like fancy lab terms, but they're the 2 fundamental ways coaches measure raw force. And you've got to understand the difference. On one side, you've got isotonic, or what's called dynamic strength. This is what you probably picture in your head: lifting a dumbbell, doing a squat. Your muscles are working through a full range of motion. But then you have isometric, or static strength. This is when your muscle is firing like crazy, but nothing's actually moving. Like pushing with all your might against a solid wall. Both are critical for an athlete, and you measure them in completely different ways. To really get a handle on isotonic strength, let's take an example that everybody knows. I mean, the humble push-up. It's a perfect test of dynamic strength and endurance through a complete range of motion. And what's so cool here is how scientific it is. The test is standardized, but it's also adapted. See, the modified position for women isn't about making it easier. Not at all. It's a smart biomechanical adjustment because, on average, men and women have different upper body muscle distribution. This change makes sure the test is a fair and accurate measure of endurance for everybody. Okay, let's completely switch gears. We've talked about strength with movement. Now let's look at an isometric test, where we measure pure static force. For this, a really common tool is the grip dynamometer, and it illustrates the idea perfectly. You grab the handle, and you squeeze as hard as you possibly can. That's it. Your hand doesn't move. The device measures that pure, raw force your muscles are generating. It gives you a direct window into your static strength, and usually they'll take the best score out of 3 tries. All right, we've covered strength, but being strong is just one part of the equation. Let's move on to the more explosive parts of the playbook. We're talking about speed, sheer power, and that amazing ability to change direction on a dime: agility. Now, this definition is so important. Power is not the same as strength. It's all about how quickly you can apply that strength. Think of it like this: strength is the size of the engine, but power is how fast it can go from 0 to 60. It's that explosive combo of strength and speed that really defines athletic power. So, how do you test all these things together? Well, enter the burpee. I know, but it's a legendary exercise for a good reason. It smashes together strength, agility, coordination, and endurance into one very, very challenging movement. The 4 stages look simple enough, right? But the test isn't about doing one. It's a flat-out race against the clock. The score is how many perfect reps you can bang out in a minute. And the key word there is perfect. Every single part of the movement has to be correct, or the rep just doesn't count. So we have tests for strength, we have tests for power, tests for agility. But no single test can define an athlete. This is where coaches kind of become scientists. They create what's known as a test battery, a specific group of tests that are handpicked to build a complete performance profile for that athlete's sport. Check out the playbook for a basketball player. A vertical jump isn't just for showing off. It's a direct measure of anaerobic power, that explosive energy you need for a rebound or a block shot. The lane agility drill, that's measuring how fast you can shuffle your feet on defense. See, each test is tied to a crucial skill you need on the court. Now let's compare that to the football playbook. The demands of the sport are different, so the tests are different. The 40-meter sprint is a pure measure of that breakaway speed. The standing long jump might seem a little random, but it's an incredible measure of elastic leg strength, how much spring your legs have for that explosive first step. It just goes to show how testing is tailored to the sport. Okay, so we've run all the tests, we've got all this data. But a number on a spreadsheet is pretty useless on its own, right? How do we actually take these numbers and use them to make an athlete better? When it comes to strength, there is one number to rule them all, the 1RM, or your 1 rep max. This is the big one. It's the absolute, no doubt about it, maximum weight you can possibly lift for one single complete rep. It is the gold standard for measuring your dynamic strength. Now, actually trying to lift your true 1 rep max can be dangerous. You could get hurt. So coaches do something much smarter. They use a little bit of science. They'll test how many times you can lift a lighter weight, and then they plug it into a formula like this one to predict your max. In this case, lifting 50 kilos 7 times gives an estimated max of about 60 kilos. You get the data you need without the risk. That's just smart training. So, after going through this whole playbook, what's the most important takeaway? It's this: there is no single score for fitness. It just doesn't exist. True fitness is a mosaic. It's a complete picture that you can only see when you combine all the different tests for strength, power, speed, agility, and endurance. Every test is just one piece of that bigger puzzle. And that really brings us to the final, most important question. Understanding how performance is measured, that's the first step. The real power comes from using that knowledge, because if you know what the test is, you can start to train specifically for it. So I'll leave you with this thought. Now that you've seen what the pros are measuring, how would you change your own training?